Have you ever wondered why some voices command obedience, while others fade into silence? In a world of endless chatter, the true power lies not in speaking, but in persuading. Today, we unravel the art of persuasion, guided by the mind of Niccolò Machiavelli himself. The problem is simple. How do you bend wills, win loyalty, and influence people when reason alone is never enough? Power does not rest in truth, nor in justice, nor even in strength. It rests in perception. Men are creatures of the eye more than creatures of reason. They believe what they see, what they are shown, long before they believe what logic whispers to them. If you wish to persuade, to lead, to command, your first task is not to convince their minds, but to capture their sight. Think of it. A leader who stumbles in private but appears confident in public will be loved more than a leader who speaks honestly of his doubts. Men do not gather around the uncertain voice, they gather around the firm one. They do not crave the truth of your weakness, they crave the image of your strength. And so, to persuade, you must build this image carefully, as a painter crafts his masterpiece. Every word, every gesture, every silence must shape the perception of power. A man may lack virtue, but if he wears the mask of virtue, he persuades others to believe he possesses it. People do not look into the soul. They judge from the surface. They cannot peer into your intentions, so they will take the appearance you present as reality. Thus, it is not necessary to be merciful, only to seem merciful, not necessary to be honest, only to appear honest, not necessary to be noble, only to look noble when eyes are upon you. Consider the rulers of Florence, of Rome, of kingdoms beyond. Those who endured were rarely those who told the truth of their hearts. They were those who played the theater of power with precision. They knew that men prefer spectacle to substance. They knew that in the eyes of the masses, a dazzling lie will outshine a dull truth. This is not a weakness of the people, it is their nature, and to persuade, one must use nature, not fight against it. Let us take a simple example. Imagine two men seeking to lead. The first speaks of hard realities, of sacrifices required, of dangers ahead. He is honest, sincere, and perhaps even correct. The second paints a picture of triumph, of prosperity, of greatness waiting just beyond the horizon. He smiles with confidence, he dresses with majesty, he carries himself with certainty. The people, hungering for hope, will follow the second man, not because he told the truth, but because he gave them the perception they desired. This is the cruel beauty of persuasion. It is not about what is, but about what seems to be. A wise persuader knows this. He crafts not just arguments, but appearances. He chooses the right moment to stand tall, the right silence to let his power breathe, the right display of generosity to win admiration, even if it costs him little. In doing so, he shapes a reality that others believe, and once they believe it, they act as though it were true. And in politics, in power, in influence, belief is reality. You see, persuasion begins long before the words are spoken. It begins in how you are seen when you enter a room, how your presence lingers even when you are silent, how your face, your tone, your posture suggest mastery over yourself and over others. Men are eager to be convinced by appearances because appearances demand little effort from them. To think deeply is exhausting, but to see and believe is easy. That is why the persuader must never underestimate the power of perception. He must not simply argue, he must perform. He must not simply explain, he must embody. He must not only speak of authority, he must look like authority incarnate. When you understand this, persuasion becomes less about the battle of ideas and more about the theater of influence. It becomes a stage where you play the role required, whether it be the virtuous leader, the fearless commander, or the generous benefactor. And though the mask may differ depending on the audience, the art remains the same. Men will follow the image, not the truth. For the truth is often too complex, too heavy, too unwelcome, but perception, crafted carefully, is irresistible. To persuade is not merely to speak, it is to define the story. Power belongs not to the one with the strongest argument, but to the one who controls the frame in which all arguments exist. Men live by stories, by tales that give shape to their fears, hopes, and desires. And he who crafts these stories holds their loyalty, their obedience, their very imagination in his hand. When a ruler seeks influence, he does not waste time answering every question, nor does he debate endlessly against his rivals. No, he tells the story first, and by doing so, he forces his enemies to react within his narrative. Think of it as a game of chess. The one who controls the center of the board dictates how the rest of the pieces must move. In the same way, the one who controls the narrative dictates how people must think, even before they realize they are thinking it. Men are not guided by pure reason. They are guided by symbols, by words repeated until they become truth, by phrases so familiar that they sink into the soul. To persuade, you must seize this principle and never let it escape you. If you allow your enemies to define you, to set the stage upon which you stand, then every word from your lips will be shaped by their design. But if you seize the narrative first, then even their resistance will only strengthen your story, for they will be forced to speak in your language, on your terms, under your shadow. Consider the great leaders of history. They did not waste their breath explaining every policy or every decision. Instead, they gave their people a vision, a grand narrative that could be repeated in taverns, in homes, in marketplaces. A single phrase, a single image, a single symbol. These persuaded more effectively than endless scrolls of logic. Men do not remember details, they remember impressions, and impressions, once planted, grow into unshakable truths. Let us imagine again, two voices rise in opposition. One argues with detail, with facts, with careful logic. The other speaks in sweeping strokes, painting a picture of enemies at the gates, of a future either radiant or ruined. The people, hungry for certainty, will not cling to the intricate argument. They will cling to the simple story, for stories are anchors in the storm, and he who provides that anchor gains their trust, their fear, their obedience. This is why the art of persuasion is not the art of debate, but the art of narrative control. You must learn to simplify complexity into a tale that men can repeat. You must give them heroes, give them villains, give them a struggle to believe in. Once you do, they will defend your story as if it were their own, even against reason, even against proof. For a man will abandon facts more easily than he abandons a narrative that feeds his soul. The clever persuader does not wait to be asked, "What is the truth?" He answers before the question forms. He does not defend his position endlessly. He makes his position the stage itself. When his enemies shout against him, their words sound like echoes within the walls he built. When rivals try to shift the tale, they find themselves trapped in the very story he began, and the people, seeing only the tale they have been given, cannot distinguish between narrative and reality, between what is said and what is. This is why repetition is the ally of the persuader. A phrase spoken once may be forgotten, but a phrase spoken 100 times becomes unshakable. Speak often enough, and your story ceases to be yours alone. It becomes the people's, and when it is theirs, it is eternal. You may vanish, but the narrative remains, guiding thought, shaping action, binding loyalty, and those who live within it will fight to protect it even without your command. Every man who seeks to persuade must first ask, what moves the human heart? What force bends the will, compels obedience, and wins loyalty? Machiavelli understood, as few others did, that men are not guided by reason alone. They are ruled by 3 levers: fear, love, and their own interest. Master these, and you will master persuasion itself. Fear is the oldest and most reliable of the 3. It speaks directly to survival, to the instinct carved into every soul since the dawn of mankind. A man may doubt your promises, he may question your words, but he will never doubt his own fear. When you strike fear into the hearts of men, you anchor yourself in their thoughts. Yet fear must be handled with precision. Too little fear, and they grow careless. Too much, and they may turn against you in desperation. The art lies in creating just enough fear to command respect, to establish authority, to remind them that to defy you carries a cost they dare not pay. Love, on the other hand, is softer but no less powerful. To be loved is to be embraced willingly, to be followed with devotion, to be served not out of necessity but out of desire. A leader who inspires love finds his words carried like a song through the mouths of his followers. But love is fickle. It lasts only as long as it is nourished. The people may cheer for you today, yet turn their backs tomorrow if their love is not fed by your gestures, your kindness, your image of care. Love can persuade, but unlike fear, it must be constantly renewed. And then there is interest, the deepest and most enduring of all. Men will betray their love, they will overcome their fear, but they will never abandon what they believe to be in their own best interest. To appeal to a man's interest is to tie your persuasion to his survival, his ambition, his hunger. When he sees that your path benefits him, when your success becomes his success, he follows not reluctantly, not out of duty, but willingly, fiercely, with his whole being. Interest binds tighter than chains. It is the most invisible, yet the strongest form of persuasion. Now imagine how these forces weave together in the hands of a skillful persuader. He knows when to show the shadow of fear, just enough to remind his followers of the danger of straying. He knows when to shine with love, to cloak himself in generosity and warmth, so that hearts turn toward him. And above all, he knows how to align his vision with the people's interest, so that they believe in serving him, they serve themselves. In this way, they are persuaded not because they are forced, not because they are deceived, but because they believe they have chosen freely. This balance is delicate, for too much reliance on one lever can break the whole mechanism. A ruler who governs only by fear becomes hated, and hatred breeds conspiracies. A ruler who seeks only love risks being ignored, for love without strength appears weak. A ruler who appeals only to interest may be abandoned the moment another offers greater rewards. True persuasion lies in knowing how to combine these forces, shifting them like a skilled conductor guiding an orchestra. Watch closely the powerful men of history, and you will see this pattern. Caesar inspired love among his soldiers, for he ate with them, marched with them, shared their struggles. Yet he also inspired fear among his enemies, for his wrath was swift and certain. Above all, he aligned his cause with the interest of Rome, so that his victories were seen as the victories of the people. This is why his persuasion endured, why men followed him even into battles that seemed impossible. Men are simple in their desires but complex in their obedience. To persuade them, you must not only speak to their reason, you must press upon these levers of the soul. Fear keeps them cautious, love draws them near, interest binds them unbreakably. And the persuader who learns to wield these three with subtlety and precision can move nations as easily as a puppeteer moves strings. Persuasion, when stripped of its ornament, is not merely the art of speaking well. It is the art of guiding belief, and belief more often than not is born not from truth, but from illusion. Strategic deception is the hidden blade of influence, the silent hand that directs men without their knowledge. To persuade, one must accept this. Men are more eager to be deceived than to confront a reality that displeases them. They do not seek what is true. They seek what is comforting, what is flattering, what is useful to their desires. Consider the man who wishes to win loyalty. If he shows his every flaw, bears his doubts, and reveals his weakness, the people will turn from him, for they crave certainty, not confession. But if he conceals his fears, if he wears a mask of strength and conviction, they will believe he is strong, and in that belief they will become strong for him. The deception does not weaken them, it empowers them, And so the wise persuader deceives not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, for men live not by the weight of truth, but by the comfort of appearances. Deception in persuasion is not always grand. It often lies in subtle choices, the silence that hides an inconvenient fact, the exaggeration that makes an achievement shine brighter, the careful omission that prevents doubt from spreading. Words may deceive, but so too can gestures, so too can timing, so too can the stories left untold. The clever persuader knows that what is hidden is often more powerful than what is revealed. History is filled with rulers who mastered this craft. They promised peace while preparing for war, offered generosity while plotting conquest, spoke of unity while dividing their enemies. Their people believed not because the words were true, but because the words were what they needed to hear. A nation does not demand honesty from its leaders. It demands hope, protection, direction. If the truth does not provide these, then illusion must. And once the illusion is embraced, it becomes more enduring than truth itself. But one must not mistake deception for reckless lying. Lies without strategy destroy trust and breed contempt. Strategic deception is different. It is the art of shaping reality without shattering it. It is choosing carefully what to reveal and what to conceal, what to magnify and what to diminish, until men see not the world as it is, but as you wish them to see it. This requires discipline, for the careless deceiver is quickly exposed, but the careful one becomes indistinguishable from truth itself. Think of a commander before his army. If the battle is uncertain, shall he confess his doubts? No, for doubt will poison the hearts of his soldiers. Instead, he speaks of inevitable victory, of glory awaiting them, of enemies already trembling. His words may not match the reality of the battlefield, yet his deception inspires courage, and courage can transform the battle's outcome. The lie, in this case, creates a truth. This is the paradox of persuasion. Men are most persuaded when they believe they are not being persuaded at all. The deceiver must never appear as one. He must act as though every gesture is natural, every promise sincere, every silence innocent. His deception works not because it is hidden, but because it feels unnecessary to question. And when the people believe without question, persuasion has reached its highest form. To wield strategic deception is to understand that human beings crave illusions as much as they crave food or water. They hunger for certainty when none exists, for meaning when the world is chaotic, for reassurance when danger surrounds them. If you can provide this through the careful use of deception, they will follow you willingly, defending even the illusions you crafted, for they will not see them as illusions at all, but as the very truth they needed to survive. And so, we return to the essence of persuasion. It is not the triumph of reason, nor the triumph of truth, but the triumph of influence. He who persuades does not merely win arguments. He commands perception, he seizes the narrative, he pulls the levers of fear, love, and interest, and he cloaks his intentions with the veil of strategic deception. The masses believe they are free, yet they move along the paths drawn for them by those who understand this art. They trust what they see more than what they know. They cling to stories more than to facts. They yield to their desires more than to their judgment. To master persuasion is to master these weaknesses, and in mastering them, to wield power without drawing a sword. Remember this: men can resist armies, but they cannot resist belief. They can defy laws, but they cannot escape perception. They may question words, but they rarely question the story they have already chosen to believe. Persuasion is the unseen chain that binds them, stronger than iron, softer than silk, yet impossible to break. This is the legacy of Machiavelli, not a guide to kindness nor to morality, but to survival and dominion. The art of persuasion is the art of ruling minds, of shaping reality, of bending the world to your will. To practice it is dangerous, but to ignore it is fatal. For in every age, in every land, those who rise above others are never merely the strongest or the wisest. They are the ones who persuade,